All right, this is our last little bit of check digits here. So we're looking at routing numbers or bank routing numbers. Another way to think about these is banking identification numbers. So you'll see me use both of those in here. So this system looks a little bit more like the last system we looked at, where there's kind of a little bit of weighting, interesting weighting going on. So we start with an 8-digit number, and we multiply the first one by 7, the second one by 3, the next one by 9, etc. So we have all these like 7, 3, and 9 we see showing up a few times in here. So that's for the first 8 numbers. So this is going to be our weighted sum. The check digit A9, that's going to be the last digit of this weighted sum. So once we find this number, we just take the last digit of it. So A9 is the last digit of that. And so we can say, okay, cool. If I have a routing number, so let's say we have the routing number 093-00037. And the good news is a lot of these do have zeros in them, so that's kind of nice. A bunch of these are just going to zero out. If that is our banking identification number, let's find the check digit. So what I'm going to do is take this number, and again, I will caution, because this starts with 0, when I take this over to Excel, right, if I just click Control V, it's going to take that 0 out of there. So if I want the 0 to be in there, put the apostrophe. Okay, and again, you do not have to use Excel for this. If you just want to use your calculator, that's totally fine. But the nice thing about Excel is you can set up little templates so that if you're doing these on the homework or even in the in-class activity, right, you can kind of utilize it more than once depending on what the questions are. And you may also need this for the project. So, okay, here is our routing number. We want to find the check digit. So what I did was a weighted sum similar to what we did last time. So I'm going to put those digits, the digits of this number, I'm going to put them right here in column A, so that row 1 contains my first digit, row 2 contains the next, and so on. So I've got 0, 9, 3, 0, 0, 0, 3, 7. And this is, right, 8 numbers. The 9th one is going to be the check digit. That's what we're looking for. So we do not have that. So I found the weighted sum. I actually updated this already so that the video itself could be kind of quick, because we had already done one very, very similar to this. So if I click on the formula bar up here, it'll highlight, hey, you're using all of these. Multiply the first one by 7, the next one by 3, the next one by 9, and so on. So that's where that sum is coming from. So the last digit, then we just look at that number and say, okay, well, it's 96. The last digit is 6. So that should be our check digit, right? So the last digit equals the check digit. And so we just get an answer of 6. So easy enough. Of course, if you wanted to, again, go through that whole process and just say, okay, 7 times 0 plus 9 times 3 plus 3 times 9. You know, if you wanted to go through this whole thing, totally fine. It's really not that much of a process, especially because these are only 8 digits. So no big deal. Okay, we got another one of these tricky ones though. Determine the value of y so that the bank routing number given here, so this is a 9-digit number, meaning it includes the check digit. So find the value of y so that this bank routing number is valid, including the check digit. Well, we have a couple of, definitely a couple of options here. We could take this number, and since we already set up a template, so let's steal this, Control C, bring it over to Excel here. I'm going to put it up top here. This one, because it has a y in it, it won't take the 0 away in the front, but again, it starts with 0, just be careful. So I'm going to put in these values, but I'm going to skip over the y for start. Well, actually, let me put it in first, and then we'll explain why we want to skip over that. So 0, 6, y, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, and I am not going to put in the 9. Right? I know already that that's my check digit. That's my last digit. So basically what we're saying is, with the first 8 numbers here, the last, when we use the scheme, right, the weighted scheme, the last digit should be 9. So I'm going to replace this y. I'm going to say, okay, let me get rid of y. So right now, with these other numbers, or essentially acting as though I had a 0 here, I would get a weighted sum of 21. Is the last digit 9? Nope, sure isn't. So I'm going to try something else. I'm going to say, well, what if it's a 1 here? Nope, last digit is 0. What if it's a 2? Oh, hey, that actually works out, right? So I found that one pretty quickly. So y has to be 2 in order for this scheme to give me the right check digit. So there's our answer, y equals 2. And so if we're using Excel, if we have this set up, of course, it's really nice. But if we don't, what we would have to do if we're trying to do this thing by hand, again, we'd have to look at these numbers and say, well, let me implement the scheme up here. So 7 times the first number. Okay, well, that's 0. So that we don't really have to worry about that. 6 times 3, right? So 3 is multiplying by the second digit. 9 times y. So, okay, that would be 9y. Then we keep going down the line, right? We have a bunch of zeros. And then really the only thing we would have actually is 3 times 1, because remember, this is our check digit. So it does not get multiplied by anything. So we would have 3 times 1. So, okay, this would be 18 plus 3. So 21 plus 9y. The whole idea, though, is that this number, this whole thing, ends with a 9, right? That's the check digit. So we would have to start, again, kind of thinking about, well, what if I let y be 0? That's not going to work. What if I let y be 1, right? And basically just keep plugging in values of y until you figure out a number here that really does end in the desired number, which is 9, our check digit. It wouldn't take that long in this case because y equals 2. And really this calculation, because we had so many zeros, that calculation wasn't so bad. But of course, if we didn't have as many zeros, maybe this is a little more cumbersome to deal with. So something to think about there. Another thing we could think about, sorry, just adding this as an additional piece because these can be tricky. If this number ends in a 1, we know that this number somehow needs to end in an 8, right? 1 plus 8 would give us the 9. So that's also another place where 9 times 2, right? Y equals 2. But if we didn't know that, this is another reason this would make sense, because 18, we'd say, oh, yeah, it ends in an 8. 21 ended in a 1. So 1 and 8 makes 9. Life is good. So that might help you skip through some of the other numbers, you know, and say, yeah, 0 wasn't ever going to work. 1 was never going to work. I don't even have to calculate it. 2 is actually going to work because this will end in an 8. So just some thoughts on that one. And that's pretty much the idea of bank routing numbers. So again, I would encourage you maybe to think about before class, even when you're doing the quick checks or something like that, come up with sort of templates of your own. We are in that place. I showed you how to do it. But if you have any trouble with that, please feel free to reach out.